This is Neil from Master Edit. Welcome back to part 3 on how to hook your readers. You can go to the Master Edit link in the description, and you can click here for more free videos on writing. And also you can go here, see Master Edit Action, if you want to check out this really cool software that helps in editing big time, like searches for words that you use too much. It highlights a bunch of weak words that people use too often and stuff. So it has a lot of great features, and it's really cool. So anyway, check it out. It's only 30 bucks too, so pretty neato. I use it all the time, and I get a lot of writers that email me and stuff saying just how much of a blessing this software has been for them. So definitely worth checking out. Okay, so continue on then. So we left off with making your readers wonder about things, and one of the easiest ways to get your readers to wonder about things is to simply show and not tell. That is, write in scenes. And so, like, with that story, you can see there's many things she didn't tell you, but she showed you things that makes you wonder. And also, like in beginning of End of All, I show many things that make you wonder. And so you want to know answers. Sometimes they're small things, sometimes they're big things. And so that's cool. Like, hey, when she meets that guy, and is she going to meet him again? Is she going to run into him again? And so forth. So why are the Dias, or the Dias, that is the Diamond Elves and the Lightning Elves, don't get along? What's behind all that? And I constantly bring up questions, and the questions get bigger and bigger as the story goes on. So that's definitely a way to hook your readers, is getting them to want to know things, but without them even knowing that they want to know things. You do that just by subtly dropping things in there, and naturally the reader wants to know. And tension is obviously always good to start a story with. Here's an example that it was something like this. I can't remember the exact wording, but this line here, it was something like this I read on Hijack forums, or Hijack, whatever those forums are called. It's the forums from Orson Scott Card, and I post on there a lot under the name Architectus. And anyway, so what they do there is what's called the first 13 lines. Really good practice. So we have a forum part there where we practice our first 13 lines, and we scrutinize each other's first 13 lines to get better at writing our first 13 lines, because that's the most important thing you'll ever write. That's what's going to get the editor to continue reading and ultimately get you published. So you really want to get really good at openings, and especially the first 13 line openings. So anyway, this is the first line, and we had this like thread about just first lines of stories, and I really liked this one. It was something like this. I can't remember the exact words. It all started when I woke up with 2 vaginas. I mean, that is such a great opening. It almost sounds like a joke at first, but what a great opening, because right away I want to know, how in the heck did she get 2 vaginas? How does she deal with this, How does she end up that way, and how does she deal with it? Two huge questions I want to know the answer to. And I will keep reading to find the answers to, unless the story really sucks from that point on. But it's enough to keep me going, so that's a great opening line. But you don't want to have contrived lines where it doesn't play into the story. So if those 2 questions are not answered in that story, then the story's failed to do its job. Alright, so what are the things that you don't want to do in a story then, before we continue on? There are things that you don't want to do. You probably don't want to start with description, like a description of a house or something, or the description of weather, or the description of the surroundings, or anything like that. Unless it's a damn good description, because look, think about it. Has a description of a house ever drew you into a book and like you couldn't put it down? You pick up a book at a bookstore and you start reading in the first paragraph is a description of a house. Does that make you want to keep reading? You're like, ooh, I want to keep reading the story. So probably not, and it's probably not something you want to do. But if you do it, start with weather or something. I mean, Dean Koontz does it in Lightning. But he does it in a very interesting way, and it immediately draws you in and pulls you into the characters, and then he doesn't spend very long with it anyway. But the point being that if you are going to write, start with a description of a house or something, it better be a damn cool house, and it better be worth writing about. But let's say you do. You write this really good description, right? It's really catchy and everything's good. Why start with that? Isn't there a better way to start it? Can't you think of a better way to start the story? Or is the description of the house the absolute best way you can start the story, the absolute best way you can grip your readers and get them to keep reading? And so you have to think about these kinds of things, and most likely any kind of description is not going to be the way you want to start a story. So think of things that you've read that you don't like, and pretty much don't start your story that way. So start thinking back all the stories and start paying attention now. When you go to the bookstore and just kind of pick one up and kind of start reading it, and it doesn't capture your attention, you put it back. Ask yourself, wait a minute, why didn't that catch my attention? Look at it again. After you put it back, pick it up, look at it again, and read the beginning and dissect and go, how did it start? Did it start with description or something? What did it start with? Did it start with these things I'm talking about? Did it make you ask a question? Did it start with something interesting that makes you ask a question, a mystery type thing? Did it start with the character being treated wrongly or something that you can identify with? Did it give anything that you can identify with the character that you can relate to? Later on, did it show anything? If you kept reading more past the first couple of pages, or excuse me, past the first page, did it keep you? Did it say anything about the character that made you admire the character and so forth? All right, so continue on then. So I guess that's all my notes. I thought I had more notes. So don't try to cram too much info into the beginning of your story, which is something that people do a lot. I mean, by people, it's like when you first start writing out, and we all do this, first drafts and stuff. We tend to do this, and hopefully we catch it right there in the first draft before we even continue to the next page and take it out or change it. And that way we don't even have to worry about it on revisions, on second drafts and third drafts and stuff. But people will oftentimes think that, hey, I need to say all this information. You need to understand all this stuff before we start the story. No, we don't. Just give it to us in little pieces at a time. That's all we need. As a matter of fact, not giving us the answer to things is what's going to keep us reading. It creates tension. And so by just giving us a little bit, enough that we can ground ourselves and know what's happening, know what the surroundings are, kind of know a little bit about what's happening, the rest is what we're reading to find out about. You tell us everything we need to know, we're not going to keep reading. So be careful not to give too much information especially in the beginning when you first start. Just get enough to hint at things, enough to keep us reading, enough to want to know what's happening. Give us something that helps us identify with the character, to sympathize with the character, and so forth. Make something happen in the story that makes us ask questions and want to know what's going to happen. This is all manipulating the reader, and this is how you make your good opening. And also, as I already said, start in the middle of action. In other words, don't start from the beginning of the story. Know what your story is. Know what the beginning of it is. Be tempted to start from the beginning of the story, and then try to start later in the story. And all that stuff that happens at the beginning of the story that you wanted to write about, that you were going to write about, or maybe you did write about, cut all of that out and start somewhere, later in the story, and then add all that as backstory. Feed it slowly into the story as you're continuing, and that becomes backstory. Every story has backstory, so oftentimes people start too early in a story when they should have started later at a part that was much better, where we're more close to the change of the character and stuff. So what I recommend looking at is on my master website here, under the videos, is this here. Story structure and plotting. This is going to help you so much. This series, I've gotten so much praise for this series. It'll really, really help you on how to construct a story that will be interesting each and every time. It's something that a lot of screenwriters use and a lot of novelists use. And then also this here, writing engaging things like Dean Koontz. This is really helpful information. Information that I would never be writing as well as I am right now without. And show and don't tell. All these are really good. I only put good stuff on here. So anyway. I know this is a little bit long. I'm going to go to Lilith's Brood by Octavia Butler. I'll end with this, just looking at the very beginning of this, because she does a really good job. She's a really good person to study when it comes to openings. She just does such a good job with doing all this stuff that I talked about. Alive. Still alive. Alive again. Awakening was hard, as always, the ultimate disappointment. It was a struggle to take in enough air to drive off nightmare sensations of asphyxiation. Lilith Lepo lay gasping, shaking with the force of her effort. Her heart beat too fast, too loud. She curled around it, fetal, helpless. Circulation began to return to her arms and legs in furies of minutes. Exquisite pains. In flurries of minute. Wait, hold on, I read that wrong. Circulation began to return to her arms and legs in flurries of minute. Exquisite pains. Oh my gosh, with the crap, I did it again. In flurries of minute, exquisite pains. minute and minute is spelled the same, but I don't know why I kept saying minute because it made no sense. But anyway, so out of time